Officially, hello, and welcome to the first of the Marketing Insights webinar series by KnowledgePoint. So my name is Tulit, and I look after the partner engagement covering the Europe, Middle East, Africa region. And as a value-add distributor of vendor-led training programs, it is important for us to equip our partners with the tools and resources to help them succeed. Now, we have had a number of resources and sessions like this available, like the instructor trainer boot camps. But when it comes to marketing as a profession, this is our first attempt to bring the community together. So much thanks to the feedback we have received from the training partners. So we have put together a series of events, and once we run the first two of them, we will do a quick survey to check we are indeed on the right track here, and we'll continue to evolve and develop the content from there. But before we get started, just the usual housekeeping items, and this presentation will be recorded and will be shared afterwards. All lines are muted for the duration of the presentation, about 15 minutes, but then once we stop presenting, we'll open up the lines and stop recording and move into the all-important Q&A and an engagement session. So feel free to come forward with any questions and inputs you may have, and maybe you dare to even put on your video and we can see you. So that's pretty much it. So I hope you find today's session useful, and it's much my delight to hand over to Will Roberts here to do the presentation. He's a marketing expert here at KnowledgePoint, and we'll get started with today's session of identifying target markets. Floor is yours. Thank you, Will.
Thank you, Julie. So we're going to be going through identifying the target markets, and these series build on each other. So view this as the first workshop, and as we go through, keep in mind for this, and then use this work when we come to our next workshop for how to reach out to your target markets. So some things that we're going to cover are market segmentation, market research, and a target market persona. We'll have a Q&A at the end, so please submit your questions and we'll address them then. So what is market segmentation? The best analogy to view this is an orange. You have something that is a whole, and then you divide it up into smaller bite-sized sections. So this is making your market smaller. These are defining categories such as customers and audiences into groups with similar characteristics such as demographic, interests, and locations. So the four main sections we're going to cover are demographic, geographic, psychographic, and behavioral. So demographic, this is quantitative data. This is often found in census data, and it is the demographics. So the age, the gender. This is often useful for when creating promotions and targeting through social media. So demographic, as I've said, can be broken down into age, gender, education, company size, industry, and job function. So some examples of these would be a 28-year-old male from the University of Bath with an architecture BSc. They work in a company size between 1 to 10 people. The industry is architecture, and their job function is a junior architect. Geographic is quite simple. It is the location. So this can be useful for if you're running a workshop, you can do promotions and targeting within a specific area, or even if you are doing online courses, this can be very useful to determine what areas and what language barriers there may be. So examples of geographic are quite simple: the country, the town, the county, the radius around a location, or say a postcode or a zip code. So again, an example would be UK and Manchester. Psychographic. So this is slightly more conceptual. This is how people think and what they do. This is what's going to really help you get into the mind of your target market and help you decide the ways that's best to reach them and the best to approach them. So this isn't quantitative data, it is qualitative. So it's much more based around assumptions, but then we'll base this in our market research later. So this will be things like their personality traits, what they value, their attributes, interests and lifestyles, their psychological influences, their subconscious and conscious beliefs, their motivations and their priorities. So following through with our examples, they will be a motivated and engaged individual. They will have a focus on personal growth and will be willing to learn. They will be adapted. They'll be interested in technology and the arts and creativity. They will hold high career aspirations. And for example, they will want to have their own architecture firm within the next 10 years. So are willing to learn new skills and get qualifications to help them get there. So behavioral, this is what behaviors somebody will do. And this will help you find the way of reaching out to your target market, as their behavior will determine their activity. So this will be their purchasing habits, spending habits, their user status, and their brand interactions. So their purchasing habits will typically be software downloads and online purchases. They will invest in things that will help them with personal growth and be willing to learn. So they'll probably have a Skillshare account. They will have brand interactions with Architectural Digest. They'll watch the top YouTube gamers and be very heavily involved in those sorts of communities. So market research. We've now got our assumptions about our demographics, our locations, our psychographics, and our behaviorals. But how do we make this quantifiable? How do we get reasonable targets to be able to achieve? So one of the ways of doing this is through surveys, interviews, observations, Google search trends, and Facebook demographics. Surveys are quite easy to do at the moment with SurveyMonkey. If you do have a client base, you can ask them questions of how did they find you? What brand interactions do they have? Google search trends can be very useful for paid per clicks, as well as Facebook demographics for promotions. So this is all about just getting the numbers for what you need to do, set yourself reasonable targets when you're doing marketing. So our target market persona. As you may have noticed throughout this, some of the examples have been quite similar, and this is to create a person. The persona is a character that's created by you when marketing. So when you refer to this person, you instantly know your target market and who you're referring to and how you'll reach them. So you need to give them a name, you need to give them a personality, you need to know what their interests are and where they're based. So throughout this, our example has been Frank, who's a 28-year-old male and a junior architect. He works hard at his job, but he's interested in digital art and design and wants to grow. He has a full gaming and graphics setup and uses their paycheck to purchase more hardware and software, and has aspirations of setting up his own firm in the next 10 years. So to this end, we know that he's willing to learn and he wants to gain more insights. So that's quite a quick covering of how to do the market research and our insights. So make sure you follow us on LinkedIn, as we do have a lot of information about our Unity roles and our Unity skills on there. And we're now going to open the floor for questions.